Welcome to the Run It Back Podcast, where we run back everything from the 80s and 90s. I'm Jason.
I'm Sarah.
This week we're running back Twister from 1996. And this is either one of your two favorite movies that you watch all the time.
It is definitely one of my favorite movies. Now, this movie is just a disaster movie, whereas last week was a disaster of a movie.
Oh, really? You're saying Blade Runner was that bad?
I gave it a half a star, and that was only because it was technically a movie.
Technically?
Yeah, I really like Twister.
So, Twister starts out, and you have a flashback of June 1969, where you meet little kid Jo and her family?
Yeah, her parents and her dog.
There's a tornado coming. They got to get out of the house and go to their storm cellar, but they don't take the dog.
Yeah. Well, Jo keeps hollering for Toby. He finds his way.
Yeah. I feel like our dogs would be with us anyway.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't let us get 2 feet in front of them.
I mean, it's not even like they had to look for the dog. The dog was asleep on the bed with Jo.
Yeah.
Like, Daddy grabbed Jo, Mama could have grabbed Toby.
So they run to the storm cellar. Eventually, the dog's outside. They let him in. So they save the dog.
Now, the storm cellar is, like, across the yard.
Yeah, it's out in the middle. It's not in their basement like you would normally think.
Right.
There's probably a reason for that. I guess there's no house rubble on top, so you can get out.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some kind of reason, but we don't live in an area where we need to know that reason.
Yeah.
I also know Daddy isn't big on storm cellar maintenance and upkeep, because when they close that door, it does not stay that way.
Yeah. I don't even know why. The door starts rattling and stuff because they're in the suck zone.
Right.
He goes over there to hold it shut. Like, you don't have, like, if the door's gonna go, the door's gonna go.
Right.
You're still safe. If something's gonna fall in that doorway, as long as you're in the back, you're good. He goes over there and holds onto it because he's dumb, and he ends up getting
instinct trying to save his family. But, like, he should have a couple months ahead of storm season. Maybe went out there and shored it up and put a couple extra locks on it.
I don't know why they got window holes. You don't need window holes.
So you can see
That's just
over.
added liability. You can hear when it's over. Okay, so he's holding on the door. This thing yeets him across the farm, and he presumably dies.
Poor little Jo runs after him. Mama has to grab her up, which becomes a real pattern with Jo.
Yeah, Jo's not real smart on when she loses her composure.
Jo has a lot of trauma she's working through.
Yeah.
So Daddy dies. Dad gets sucked up into the tornado.
The end of the flashback, you see basically everything has been destroyed on their farm. And then you come to present day and the National Severe Storm Lab, which I didn't Google if that was a real thing, but they have their satellites going and they're looking at, storm cells coming up for today.
So you lived in Indiana for a little bit when you were little. I know you've talked about having, like, tornado drills in school. Did you ever have a tornado when you lived there, or do you remember?
Yeah.
Like, what'd you do? Is this like a basement thing, or you got like a storm cellar out in the middle of a field?
If you were in school, you went to a central hallway. There was usually an intersection in the school. The hallway comes basically like a four-way intersection, and you have kids lined up against the cinder block or the lockers, so that if something fell in, the support wall would hold you. You kind of sat Indian style.
But I'm saying you personally, like, did you experience one while you were there? Where were you? Were you in school? Were you home? What did you do?
There's not just one.
It's not a rare event. That long.
It's not a rare event.
You didn't live there that long.
There was I remember at least one at my aunt and uncle's house, and at least one at school. And I remember doing the drill at school multiple times.
Right. So at your aunt and uncle's house,
yeah.
Just in the basement, or is there a cellar in the middle of the yard, or interior?
I think they might have had in the one
bathroom.
It was before they moved. In the one house, they were actually gone, and my grandma and grandpa had come in to watch us.
Uh-huh.
They had us hide. They had a couch that stood up a lot, so we were in a middle room. The couch was like up against a central wall, so they had us under the couch, and then they were right there with us.
The closest I ever came was the Duratio, which is like tornado light.
Yeah.
I didn't care for that. I don't want to live anywhere with a tornado.
Well, Duratios are technically bigger than tornadoes.
But, like, less destructive. I mean, no
can
offense to the people who died in the Duratio 8 years ago.
They can cause... The destruction is broader because it's such a big area. Tornado is like pinpoint.
Right.
It's like a magnifying glass focused focusing light on a single point. Derecho is more like a land hurricane type deal.
A land hurricane, yeah.
They both can cause a lot of damage. But bigger tornadoes, you could see the damage in one spot. You don't have to
So you weren't home with us when we had the derecho.
No, I was at work.
It was just me and Moxie, who is traumatized still. It was 8 years ago. It was like 8 years and 2 days ago. She is still traumatized. Like, the wind cannot blow. It cannot rain without her freaking out. But all of this, it's worse than a tornado. It's just as bad. It could do as much damage. Was not there when I called you and was like freaking out. You were all like, "Oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it." You made fun of me.
What am I going to do? Freak you out more?
You made fun of me because I put on shoes and put the dog on her leash.
Those were very prudent things to do.
Thank you. You know why? Because I watched Twister 974 times and I was like, okay, we got to be prepared. I need this dog on a leash. I need shoes on my feet. We lived in an apartment on the second story and I was like, oh, we're fucked. I'm gone. This is it.
But you asked me what to do, and I said go in the laundry room because
we had no
2-bedroom apartment with
walls at all.
A kitchen and living room that was kind of like a longer room, but it was
an open.
There was no real separation. So the kitchen and living room, when you walk in, left and right, 2 bedrooms opposite them, but in the middle, like dead center of the apartment, was a laundry room, and it had, when you closed the doors, it had a little bit of space. So you went in there, shut the doors.
Oh, I did not shut the doors. I am entirely too big to get in there and shut the doors. But after that, every time we would leave, we would come home and find our dog in the dirty clothes pile in there. Like, it became her safe spot.
After she was crate trained, her crate was her safe spot.
Right.
Even when we would leave her out, we would come home, she'd be napping in the crate.
I had her on her leash, and I'm in the laundry room holding her. And at one point, when it got real bad, she escaped me.
She said, F you, I'm going to my safe spot.
She ran in her crate by herself, and I shit you not, I swear to God, I know none of you are going to believe me, but I put my hand on a Bible, turned around, put her paw through the door, and closed her door.
Yes.
And then went and sat in the back of the cage, and she would watch me, but she was like, good luck, Mom.
Now, this is the same dog that, shortly after that, kicked another dog out of her kennel, threw its toy, and shut the door and said, this is mine,
she unlocked it then, yeah. She basically made her own roll cage.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, in a tornado or any kind of windy situation, because it's not that the wind is blowing, it's what the wind is blowing. So you want to stay away from windows, doors, things like that.
At the time, we lived a couple hours away from our parents, and we were going to be hit by the derecho first. And after we were finished with it, I called my family and I was like, this is bad. It's not just wind. It's really bad. Because we've never seen anything like that here. And nobody believed me. I was like, my dad had family in. He had a tent set up for the kids in the yard. I was like, you need to take the tent down. You need to move the grill back. It's like, you need to get everything you've ever liked out of the yard. He's like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. I was like, it's not fine, Dad. Like, I know he just thought I was being dramatic. Yeah, it uprooted the tent. It threw it in the creek. It's gone forever. It knocked over the grill and broke it. It knocked out their power, their water, their gas.
They didn't have power for a while.
He didn't have power for like 2 weeks. Yeah, or water.
We didn't have power for like 3 days.
They cut water off to the entire city. No, we were actually fine. Like, it knocked down some trees, but we were fine. We had power and water. We never lost anything.
I remember I stayed in a hotel, though. Was that something different?
That was something different.
Because it was hot.
Yeah.
Because normally we would have just toughed it out, but it was hot.
Yeah.
Are you sure that wasn't right around that time?
It actually may have been, because us
I
coming
think we
home,
didn't have power for 2 days.
Us coming home from the hotel was my on this day on Facebook today.
So I think we didn't have power for 2 days. Or almost 2 days. It was like up to 48 hours, something like that. So when we got power, we went home.
But Dad didn't have power for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Alright, so back to the movie. So sorry for my very early wonderings.
So you're in present day, and Bill and his girlfriend are going to see Joe, which is his ex-wife.
To be.
He's trying to make sure she signed divorce papers.
Now, before this, when you said we were at the National Severe Storm Lab, or wherever you said, they said it was going to be a record outbreak.
Yes.
They've never seen anything like it. It's going to be a long day. And the entire movie, they said, it was shot, it was like 24 hours. So, was a very long day.
So they're Joe's got her team. They're getting ready for all this storm commotion. And everybody's like, hey, Bill's back. And he's like, I'm not back. He's very adamant that he's not back. He just wants Joe to sign the papers so him and Melissa can leave. But Joe wanted to show him Dorothy. It's a setup with a bunch of sensors in it. And they're supposed to get it to the tornado. Tornado sucks it up and it'll give them a bunch of data about the funnel for the core of the tornado.
Now, he asked her if she signed the divorce papers, and she's like, of course, yeah, I signed them. And she goes to the truck to get them, and while she's behind his back, she takes, like, her clasp ring off and puts it over her left hand because she has the wedding ring on still. Like, she still loves him from the get-go. Very obvious. She puts that ring over to kind of hide it. But she hadn't signed them. She didn't sign all of it. She left a page blank.
So he points it out to her, and then she asks about Melissa, and he's like, I left her with Dusty.
Which, of all the people, why would you leave her with the weirdest one?
He is definitely a wild man.
He's something.
So he explains the suck zone to Melissa.
Yes, he does.
Very creepily.
Yes, very in her face. But Joe tells him Dorothy's here, and he's like, show me. She knew exactly what she was doing.
Yes.
She was like they say, like, the way to a man's heart's through his stomach. Like, she was like, science is the way back in here. But like, I have the one thing he wants that nobody else can give him, and that's this.
She also was thinking, it was his idea to begin with, and she kind of wanted him there the first time they tried to use it.
I'm sure she did, but she still knew what she was doing.
And basically, what they're trying to do is get this data, and there's not a whole lot of warning. I think she said 3-minute warning times,
right, which
is not enough time, and
she was real happy that if with this data they could push it to 15 minutes,
which technically could get.
Yeah, that's
because if you take 3 minutes, you got to have some. Well, but this is before cell phones were big. There is a cell phone in the movie, but it is not a text data look up information kind of cell phone. It is a make a call if you have service.
Yeah,
like maybe a couple years after Zach Morris's phone.
Yeah.
So you have things. People just have to get lucky and be around a radio or a TV. Yeah. So you got 15 minutes. That's that much more exposure time.
Now they make those weather warning radios from back in the day that'll like kick on automatically and tell you, like, make this horrible sound. Because my uncle that lives in Kentucky bought one, but he said it would go off all the time for no reason, like in the middle of the night. So like 4 a.m. they'd wake up panicked that like something's happened, like a tornado's coming, and there'll be nothing. Like it just malfunctions a lot.
So they probably turn it off, don't you?
So they turned it off and didn't use it yet.
But now we got cell phones, and then every now and then you'll be in a store or somewhere with a bunch of people, and you start hearing that emergency signal go off.
I was in the Kroger here last year before, and I have mine turned off because it goes off for everything. It's real unnerving, but like I heard one, and then I heard two, and then like the entire store was just like, bah, bah, bah. I was like, I don't know what's going on, I gotta get my groceries and get home. Now, Dorothy here is based on an actual tornado instrument pack called Toto.
So, through all this, you learn storm chasers are crazy people. Bill's not back.
Did we need to learn that?
Not really. Okay. I mean, if you've never seen, like, right when Discovery and TLC started becoming Undiscovery and UnTLC, which, if anybody can remember, that used to stand for the Learning Channel. Yeah. But now you can learn about...
Now it's exclusively Toddlers and Tiara, Honey Boo Boo, My 600-Pound Life. Now it's just like a channel of freaks.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And Discovery's not much better.
I was flipping through the channels the other day, and they still show that Mama June from Not to Hot show, even though she's like a full-on raving meth head now.
People love train wrecks. So they used to have a Storm Chasers show, which I watched every now and then. They had their cars and trucks fitted with like...
Yeah, but those were more Jonas people.
Oh, yeah. They're definitely...
They were sellouts.
Sellouts.
Corporate sellouts. So it's tornado time.
They get word that one's touchdown, and they start heading out. Joe still doesn't sign the papers. So Bill and Melissa have to chase the Storm Chasers.
Well, they were leaving. They were leaving. Bill obviously did not want to leave, but he was leaving. And Melissa was like, wait, did she sign the papers? And he was like, if we hurry, we can catch them. Which is what he really wanted to do all along anyway.
So on this chase for the Storm Chasers, you meet Jonas.
He tells Melissa to stay. Like, you shouldn't go, it's dangerous. She's like, no, I want to tag along. I've always wanted to see what you did. But she just doesn't want him to be alone with Joe.
You think so?
Unless she just really didn't know what a tornado was. Because she does not handle it well.
Oh, no, she has no idea what a tornado really is.
Okay.
I mean, she might know the definition.
Yeah,
But throughout the rest of the movie, you learn she does not.
Why does she have so much? Like, is the tornado supposed to be afraid of that? Like, why are you screaming, bitch? You are making the situation... We'll get there.
So...
Not a Melissa. While Bill and Melissa are in the car on the way to this tornado, the first tornado, you meet Jonas.
Jonas and his team, he has, like, corporate sponsorships, and they all say
he said that they
out.
all started in the same lab, but then Jonas went out and got corporate sponsors. Says he has no instinct and doesn't have Dorothy, or he had thought.
Yeah.
And then, I don't think it's technically Jonas, but it's one of his crew of people runs Bill off the road.
Yeah.
And he punctures his tire, and now everybody's stopped at this gas station.
Yeah. And both teams are stopped at this gas station.
Yes, they are.
I guess what had happened was the storm dissipated, and now they're waiting.
It looks like a staging site, kind of.
So, he's getting his tire fixed. There's a...
news crew?
Restaurant around there.
Okay,
too.
yeah.
Restaurant there, there's a news crew. It's kind of dead middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's where Jonas unveils his dot.
He is being interviewed by the news about the first one of its kind and the dot 3. Bill sees him being interviewed and runs over and you would think he'd have just ran over and threw a punch, but he runs over and knocks his hat off and then gets into it with him.
Yeah.
But you see a little bit of, like, maybe vintage Bill.
He definitely tries to fight Jonas.
Even after they break him up and everything's fine, Jonas says, I really enjoy your weather reports, because he is a weatherman now, and very begrudgingly so, and that pisses him off.
So, Bill, knowing that his former team has Dorothy,
right,
and that Jonas is ripping them off and trying to make money off their idea, blah, 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 Bill's all the way in now.
Pretty much.
Bill's 110%. He's already tried to fight the dude.
Yeah.
He's in.
He tells Joe he's going to give her one day.
And then he's going to go.
Right.
But he also keeps sending Melissa away.
He does. Every time Melissa comes up to him, he's like, go get us something to drink. Go here. You should stay here. You should go there. I'm going to go over here.
Well, this time...
And I didn't so much notice it until the Screen Junkies
Honest
Trailer, which they did of Twister last week, and now all I could see is him sending Melissa away.
So this time when he sent her away to get some cold drinks, she ends up in the diner with Joe, and they talk a little bit. And Joe gives a little bit of backstory. When Bill said Jonas has no instincts, like, Joe starts talking about how her aunt always called Bill the human barometer. Like, he sees the patterns in the clouds and the wind, and can kind of tell if it's going to shift this way, if it's going to dissipate, if it's going to get more intense.
And earlier, Jonas made fun of him. He said that the time of smelling the earth is over. Smelling the dirt is over. And, like, while they're having this conversation, you see him outside, like, picking up dirt out of the parking lot and, like, smelling it.
I don't think he really
dropping
smelled it.
And seeing which way it's going to go. Yeah. But Joe glosses over the barometer comment. And she's like, you're still in love with him, aren't you? I hope this isn't some desperate attempt to keep him in your life. What'd I say, Joe?
Yeah.
I hope this isn't some desperate attempt to keep him in your life. To which Joe just looks at the waitress. The waitress was all in, too. She's like, fuck yes, they're going to fight. This is awesome. She's like watching him. Joe just looks at her. She's like, yeah, check, please. Never addresses the fact that she's in love with him.
Yeah. So then you go outside, and I think Dustin is standing around Bill. He asks him something about what do you think. And Dusty can kind of feel, like, gauge what he's doing.
Hold on. It has been a hot minute since you got a name wrong.
And I didn't even do that one on purpose.
Vintage Jason. You never do them on purpose.
I do some of them on purpose. Whew. So, Dusty. I did that one.
I don't think you did. I think you got it backwards.
It's like, we're going green, aren't we? Or something like that.
The sky changed.
So Bill says, he confirms they're going green. He's back. Everybody gets in the whatever vehicle. I don't know why it takes
of old ass random cars.
I understand the multiple cars because the lead car with Dorothy, with the unit that goes up to the tornado, is the only one that really goes into danger. Do they need the other 4 or 5?
Well, different people and
One
instruments
guy,
and things.
this dude right here's just in his car by himself.
Yes, he is. He's just in it for the love of the game, man.
I think Dusty's car has some instruments.
Yeah, it has a bunch
but
of
there's
stuff in
another van with a guy with a map, Rabbit.
Uh-huh.
The other guy, there's some computer things in there, but they can narrow this down a little bit. They can go a little bit greener.
Jonas also has like 3 or 4 SUVs in a van.
Yeah, but nobody knows why. But Dusty has he's turned his truck into like a camelback straw. There's a straw just hanging by the driver's seat. He just grabs it and drinks whatever he's got in there.
Yeah. I'm assuming it's some kind of early form of like DIY Red Bull and Monster.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's got a lot of energy.
So everybody's on the way to this store, man.
So Bill and Joe go together in Joe's car, and he tells Melissa to go by herself in the truck behind everybody.
Yeah.
She's carrying on a very nice conversation, asking what Melissa does, and just niceties.
Bill says he just doesn't want to fight.
And then they proceed to fight over the radio because everybody can hear them.
Which I thought was kind of BS because every other time it's a CB radio, they got to push the button.
I don't know. Maybe somebody's sitting on it. But apparently they always hear them because they said they're like eating snacks and listening to them. It's like, I think they're getting better at this.
Yeah.
So Bill is arguing to the point he runs them off the road. And she's like, do you want me to drive? He's like, no. She's like, well then would you? Because they are about to hit some kind of tractor equipment.
Yeah.
Which she was very cool about because it was like a last second.
I think she's just like, fuck it.
It was going to
hurt. Kind of like an adrenaline junkie.
So when they were back at the gas station, Jonas kind of cornered Joe and asked where they were going to go and what she thought. Because apparently he has a long history of just following Bill.
Yeah, he's doing whatever Bill does.
So you see them leaving and Jonas is following them.
And at one point on their trail, they decide to cut across one of these smaller roads. And as Jonas is going by, his driver notices the skid marks saying, hey, they turned. And he was like, follow.
Yeah. So they need to make another turn to get to the tornado, like through this field. And Bill doesn't want to do it, and Joe just kind of pushes him into it. She's like, you haven't lost your nerve, have you? Because she knows exactly how to play him.
Yeah. Which
makes him turn, and it was a real bad idea because they turned straight into just like a trench that they can't seem to get out of.
Yeah, I think he was going to use the trench for a while. Like, get over off the road into the trench and then go through the field, but it just wasn't working. I think if he would have slowed down a little bit.
Well, the brakes are out.
That explains a little bit.
Yeah, the brakes are out because he tries to stop before they come to this little low bridge and can't get it to stop, and they end up just hitting the bridge.
But there's a little bit of standing water in front of the bridge, so they kind of slow down a little bit.
But they hit the bridge, they bail out, they take shelter under the bridge because the tornado is pretty much right on top of them at this point.
And this is the second tornado. So they go under the bridge, try to hide. The tornado comes and she had tried to set up Dorothy, and if they would have just opened it up, they would have end of the movie right there. They would have had the sensors go up, maybe. But this thing picks up her truck and just takes it away.
Yes, it does.
So everything goes by, and storm goes by, everything calms down, and Joe's truck just lands in the middle of the road, right in Melissa's path.
Yes, it does. And to Melissa's credit, she evades it pretty well.
Yeah, but she was still shook. She's kind of upset over the whole thing.
She was significantly more shook than Joe or Bill were, having held on to a support beam of a bridge in the middle of a tornado.
Yeah.
Which, again, Bill has to pull her back twice.
Yeah.
From crawling, like, full on into this tornado.
She goes into X Games mode and just doesn't think.
Yeah.
So Dusty asked what it was like, and she was like, windy.
Yeah. Dusty smokes way too much weed to be beneficial to anybody.
He seems like he does
I don't
whatever
know.
job.
He was just like, oh, that was awesome. What was it like? So her truck's laying upside down in the middle of the road. Melissa skidded off to the side of the road, and Jonas and his people start coming by, and they see all this, and his driver says, should I stop? And he tells him no, he won't let him stop and help him.
Yeah, because he's a dick.
So him and Dusty kind of get into like a shouting match at each other as they drive by. Dusty's yelling shit at him.
But Dusty jumped up on the window and like was holding on like in the car.
Well, apparently that scene used to have some real vulgar shit in it, which I would have loved to have seen. Because this movie was apparently originally rated R. was originally rated R when the script was written, and a lot of it had to be cut out to make it PG-13, but a lot of it was Dusty and Jonas's banter, and I'm assuming mostly in this scene.
So as Joe's digging her shit out of her crushed up car.
She just kicks the window in.
Yeah.
Digs her shit out.
She's getting it out. She sees Bill and Melissa's red truck. It's like, you got full coverage on that thing?
Yeah.
And he's like, no. Next thing you know, they have Dorothy 2 loaded up, where I guess maybe the other cars are keeping the other Dorothys.
Could be.
So that would explain some of the bigger vans.
Bill's camper top as well. Gotta put it somewhere.
They probably just chucked that fucker on the side of the road.
So they get everything in Bill and Melissa's truck, and Melissa is all fucked up. She's like, "We're going again?"
Yes, they start going after another storm, which ends up being the third tornado. And
they are side by side on the road with Jonas's crew. And Bill sees something, and he was like, "We need to go left." And they slam on the brakes, and they go left, and Jonas keeps going straight. But is like, you can tell he's upset by it.
Yeah. So this tornado is over like a small body of water. I'm thinking it's
gotta be like a lake or something.
I don't think it's a lake. I think there's a lot. They're driving through farms, basically. I think it was an irrigation. So it looks like an irrigation pond, and it has like basically a land bridge in the middle, built up to keep the water from going anywhere else. I don't know why they didn't stop when they realized, like, hey, this is too close. Why they didn't stop before they got there so they could turn around if needed.
That's not what they did.
So they drive. They start going over this land bridge, whatever you want to call it, and they see a cow fly by.
Yes, they do.
And then at one point, Joe's like, "There's another cow," and Bill's like, "Nah, I think that's the first one."
That's the same cow. Melissa
has a phone call from a patient, right?
Yeah. She's on the back. She's like, "I gotta go. We got cows."
Wait, that's not exactly what happened. But you're close.
Got at least one cow. But so there's like two little tornadoes on either side of this land bridge in each body of water, but then the one on the left breaks into two, so now there's three.
No, there was only the one. Nope. And I thought it split up. Because they only start talking about the sisters. Now we have sisters.
It did split up, but there was two on one side, there was one on the other side.
I'm going to call that one.
Promise, we'll show you here in a minute. Anyway, so they're driving. They get too close, right? And their truck kind of gets swirled around in the middle of this tornado. And when the tornado dissipates, Joe and Bill get out and are laughing and hugging. Meanwhile, poor Melissa, who was in the back seat, is just full on traumatized. And I don't know why they would have taken her in the lead car with them. Like, why? Like, later they send her with Dusty. Like, why didn't they do that originally?
I think she just wanted to be...
with him?
Either with him or wanted to see what they were doing.
Yeah, but it's a real bad idea.
So yeah, they celebrate while Melissa's dealing with her feelings. I think Dusty mentions that they're close to Wakita and mentions Joe's aunt. And they start yelling about how she's going to feed them and start chanting food at her. She's like, "No, we're not going. And the next thing you know, they're like setting the table, eating dinner.
Right.
Lunch, breakfast. I don't know. There was so much food.
It was everything. It was steak and mashed potatoes and eggs, and she clearly knew how to feed an entire army of people.
Yeah. So while they're eating, they have a discussion about how if you're going to get struck by lightning, you need to bend over and get hit in the ass. I don't really know the reasoning.
Said it was the safest orifice or some shit.
Where would you prefer to get struck by lightning?
I prefer to not.
Yeah, but if you're going to get hit,
I don't think that...
definitely wouldn't be bent over right in the butthole.
I don't think that you have an option at that point. I think if you get struck, you get struck, right? Like, you don't have time to be like, hold on a second, let me take off my pants and bend over. You
can stick something higher up, left hand, right hand.
No, I don't think so. I think when you get hit, you're hit.
Yeah, but you got a couple of, maybe a split second to decide.
No, you don't see it.
If you want to get hit right in the head or stick a hand up and try to...
Yeah, I don't even take a shower when it's raining, so I'm trying real hard to minimize my risk of being struck by lightning.
They're eating and everybody's kind of telling stories to Melissa about Bill.
They call him the Extreme. Said he's the most out of control son of a bitch in the game, and Bill looks at Joe and was like, "I think I was probably second."
I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
Especially where she gets caught up in things and has no like personal safety regard at all.
But they tell a story about how he was naked. He fell out of this truck naked, and he had a bottle of Jack in his hand, and he started yelling at the tornado to have a drink and just whipped the Jack bottle into the tornado.
And the bottle never landed because the tornado sucked it up.
Right. And he assures Melissa that was an evil Bill, and he's gone because I killed him.
Yeah. But Dustin says that, I guess there's that news interview comes on, and has Jonas, and Dustin says,
Dusty. Is he in your notes as Dustin?
No. He says something about Jonas will rue the day or whatever, the imminent ruinage and all this.
And then he met the extreme.
They also start talking about the categories.
Right.
What they saw earlier was like an F2. And they start talking about how it's possible they might see an F4 today or whatever.
Yeah.
And Melissa says, "Where is there an F5?" And everybody gets kind of quiet, which I don't know why the answer wasn't like, yes, it's the most powerful tornado you'll ever see. But they're like, only one person here has seen an F5, that's Joe.
Yeah.
And that was the one back in the flashback.
Somebody described it as the finger of God.
But I like her aunt's sculptures, statues, whatever you want to call them.
Yes.
And she's got all kind of wind chime deals, which apparently she thinks of the ideas and pays this kid to weld them together for her. I don't know.
Those are real things. They're by Evan Lewis. They're kinetic wind chimes.
But a lot of them look pretty cool.
Yeah, but they're a real thing. So, Joe goes upstairs to shower while they're all downstairs talking. And she takes her shower and she's sad and she's getting dressed. And Meg comes up and talks to her and she's like, he didn't keep his side of the promise. And Joe's like, what do you mean? She was like, he didn't keep his side of the promise. To spend the bargain. To spend his life pining for you and then die miserable. But she tells him that he's here now. So kind of stop being stupid and go down there and do what you gotta do.
So, fight Melissa for Bill's honor?
I don't even think that's a fight. Like, if a physical fight between them, oh my god. Like, Joe has no fear and Melissa is afraid to break hard.
So they get a notification of another tornado and they go looking for it.
Right, they're in the middle of dinner time and it is tornado time again. This time, Bill has learned from his previous mistakes and sends Melissa with Dusty. So she'll be safe. So it's just him and Joe alone. And Rabbit, is that his name? Is feeding them directions.
Yes.
And he tells them they're going through this cornfield. And they're yelling at him, like, what's on the other side of this? And he's like, the highway. So as they pop out of this cornfield, they pop right onto the highway and almost hit Jonas. Like, almost T-bone him. So they're side by side again. And Bill's looking up at the tornadoes doing his thing. And he's like, we have to get off this road. And again, Jonas doesn't follow him.
Well, he doesn't have... I don't think he has a choice, does he?
To follow him? No, but I mean, he has he could have stopped, threw it in reverse.
Because they're side by side and they just cut to the right.
Right.
And the guy asked him, do you want us to go with him? And he's like, no.
So they say it's time for deployment. This is the time they're going to deploy their Dorothy. And Dusty tells Melissa, all right, this is the fun part, sweetheart. And she makes this god-awful face, and I'm not sure if it's because this is the fun part when she knows it's not, or if it's because he called her sweetheart. But she is not happy either way. So Bill climbs into the back of the truck and is trying to, like, prime this thing and turn it on and get it unstrapped, and he's just being killed by the hail. They said that they had, like, a hail machine to turn ice into hail, but they couldn't find enough ice in all of Oklahoma. And had to send away to Iowa for ice, but they had them put milk in their ice machine, so they were freezing these huge blocks of milk into ice, so the hail would be white and could be seen on camera. Anyway, he's being pelted by this hail.
Well, there was hail, there was tree limbs, there was all kinds of shit.
Fair bit of debris. And he keeps telling, he's like, hey, this is far enough. And she's like, no, we need to be closer. And about that time, a tricycle hits the windshield. She's like, yeah, this is far enough. She stops the car. She gets out. She's trying to help him undo Dorothy and get her out of the back of the car. The tornado's coming. It's like ripping up power poles. And like the power lines are arcing and coming down. And Dorothy falls over as they're trying to get it out of the back of the truck. And then the tornado disappears.
Yeah, the tornado disappears and like, what's going on? That's where somebody says something about the cone of silence. And Bill's like...
Joe's in the middle of the street trying to pick up the sensors.
Yeah, he's trying to talk some sense into her, like, hey. But during this whole thing, he's like, I forget what he says before that. Like, something about, like, you you can't save everything.
It's here in a minute.
No, it's right there. But this argument is also over the CB. It's like, you have me here, focus on what's right in front of you. And she's like, what? And he's like, me, Joe.
He's trying to make her leave, and she keeps jumping out of the car and
to try to gather
he
the
says,
sensors.
He says, killing yourself won't bring your dad back. Look at what you have in front of you. And she said, what are you saying? And he says, me, Joe, I'm right here. And Melissa hears all of it over the radio.
Then it cuts to a drive-in, and they're showing The Shining.
Yes. So after, he's basically told her, I still love you, and I want to be with you, but not in all those words. They're very weird around each other. And she goes to, the concession stand of this drive-in and gets a pen and sits down and signs the divorce papers.
Well, this whole place is weird, because you have the drive-in, then there's a garage where they were at.
And a random little motel.
And a motel where Melissa was doing all her emotional shit.
It was like if you got too frisky at the drive-in, you could just pop into the motel. I don't know.
Guess. So Joe gets, like you said, she goes and gets 8 coffees and steals a pen to sign the divorce papers. Melissa's in her hotel room being upset.
When her TV statics.
Her TV statics, there's a TV in the concession stand of statics, and Bill's there, he orders 2 more coffees. And they start noticing something. Bill turns around and they're like, fuck.
Now, apparently, the old TVs, when a tornado was close, a tornado gave off a certain signal that would make channel 2 on old TVs static. So
the storm comes and everybody runs to hide in the garage. It's one of the older garages where you drive a car. They call it the pit. You don't have to get down the pit. You drive the car over the pit and you don't have to jack the car up to work underneath.
Okay, I was unaware of that. But the dude, one of the people in the crew, her crew of storm chasers, just decides to hide in the floor of his truck.
Yeah, I think he panicked.
She happens to see him as she's running for cover and grabs him. But I was like, dude, you do this professionally. What are you doing?
I think he panicked.
I guess he's never really in it that deep.
Alright, so she gets him out of the car. They go in, everybody's down in that pit. Wind's blowing everything around. You got the hubcap of death, which glances that dude's forehead. All kinds of shit's breaking loose. They lose one of their trucks due to a station wagon being launched into it.
So this is when Melissa is just doing all the fucking yelling. There has to be 50 people down in here, and she is just screaming. And at one point, Joe is holding pressure on this man's forehead. And just looks over at her, and I can't tell if she's looking at Bill, what the fuck are you doing with her? Or if she's looking at Melissa, what the fuck is she doing? But she just has an utter look of disgust on her face, why are you with this bitch? You cannot be with this bitch. You can't. But yeah, I don't know if she was going to yell the tornado away. She would have got on my nerves to the point I think I'd have went back out to the tornado. I couldn't handle all that yelling.
You wouldn't have been able to hear.
So it cuts to a little fast scene of Aunt Meg in bed and Wakita, and the wind's blowing and her sculptures, and she kind of gets up and looks at it, and then it goes back to them in the garage.
And they got their instruments on, and Dusty's looking at something, and he could tell that that storm that just passed is going right for Wakita. And they actually mentioned, I think one of them said to Melissa, this just glanced us.
Right.
So they weren't even in
she said,
the worst part.
She said, is that what it was like for Bill up on that hill?
Yeah.
And he said, oh no, that was just a downspout.
Updrafts and downspouts.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, we gotta go save Aunt Meg.
Right.
And this is when Melissa decides to say goodbye.
Yeah. She says, I'm going back. And he was like, good, you'll be safe at the hotel. And she's like, no, I'm gonna say goodbye. I can't compete with this. She was like, we both knew at some point you would get bored of whatever we had. And then she said, I'm not even that upset. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, she was like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. And then she says, you need to go. She needs you.
So they break up.
Yes, they do.
And
did not give the ring back.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So the team loads up and they are too late.
Said they're about an hour from Wakita.
So they're there too late after the storm goes through.
And it is
pretty much destroyed.
It is destroyed.
Meg's house is halfway still standing.
Yeah. As they drive up, there's a family just like Joe's, a little blonde girl and kind of larger mom and the dad standing there.
But as they're driving through to Meg's house, Joe again mentions she's looking around at the discharge and was like, they had no warning.
Yeah. Now, they used Wakita, said that location scouts went out, and there was still debris left over from a hailstorm in June of 1993. So they decided to use that. Said most of the residents signed up to be extras in the movie and were paid $100 a day. And Wakita now has the Twister Movie Museum, which opened a few months before the film's release. There's a 5-block walking tour and a Dorothy 1 prop and a Twister pinball machine, which was a gift from Bill Paxton. But they also, the movie production, after they were done, fixed Main Street and repaired all the houses and businesses that had been destroyed previously, and donated all of the fire trucks that they had in the movie. So this town got, like, several new fire trucks.
Well, that's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, they kind of made out, right?
So Joe and Bill, mostly Joe's going into the house without really thinking about anything. Bill's like, so mostly Joe's running in without any regard for safety. Bill's like, hold on, like,
well,
be careful. So they go in.
It's all the family she has left, man.
They eventually find the dog. The dog's barking. He basically lets them know where Aunt Meg is. She's kind of trapped under a shelf.
Right.
They get her out. They have her on the gurney. She yells at him. She yells at Bill, says the dog's still in there. What was the dog's name?
I don't know. It was something weird.
Bill goes back in for the dog. He comes out carrying him, and she's like, I'll drive myself to the hospital.
Yeah, she says, I'm not going. I'm fine. And they were like, you're definitely not fine. You're going to the hospital. She's like, okay, but I'm driving myself. And they were like, your car is around the corner in a tree. But what is up with old people driving themselves to the hospital?
I think the adrenaline, you don't think you're hurt as bad as you are, or the situation's not as bad as it really is.
I guess.
But in the house, they almost get fucking destroyed by a Toshiba. Like that TV that was plugged in. Because that thing would have definitely killed one of them.
Oh, yeah, those things are a problem. But so Joe's in the ambulance with Meg, and they're talking, and Dusty comes up, and he is a different Dusty right now. Like, he loves Aunt Meg. Because he tried to go in the house, too, and he's somber, and he was yelling for an ambulance earlier, and he's just a different person right now. And he comes up to the ambulance, and he's like, I don't even know if you want to know, but there's another tornado coming, and it's an F5. And Joe kind of doesn't want to go. Like, she's in the ambulance with Meg, and Meg tells her she has to go. She's like, you have to stop it from happening again. She's like, I only had a few seconds. I couldn't even get downstairs. And she's like, I don't know how to make it work. And she's like, yeah, you do. You'll got it.
Yeah, and then Joe's looking at her wind sculptures, whatever.
Which miraculously survived.
Yeah. But it gives her the idea to put flaps or fins on the sensors to keep them floating, which Bill had said earlier. I don't like when they dumped out of the truck. I don't know that it would have helped,
right? If
we had actually got them to deploy. And she was like, they're too light, they're too heavy. He was like, I don't know,
right?
But so they gather all the cans they have, which apparently is just this place is full of monsters and just drinks
Pepsi and a handful of Mountain Dew, but mostly all Pepsi.
Yeah.
Also sponsored by Band-Aids, because there's like a box of Band-Aids in the back, and then there's just up close on people's hands cutting these cans and making these things, and everybody's like, every finger's cut and has a Band-Aid or two on it, and there's just blood dripping down. That's another thing. They said that they had to cut out a lot of extra gore, that the tornado injuries, I guess, in some of these places were worse, and they had to cut it down to get a PG-13 rating as well.
Really?
Yeah. Which I think is kind of what Bill Paxton means here. Also bringing it back to Pepsi. Paxton said, I'd love to direct a sequel to that movie. I've always felt like there was a Jaws version of that movie. I always feel like we did the Pepsi Light version. So he always thought there was like a better, deeper, grittier story to be told. Right, so they load up Dorothy 4 and 5 into their truck.
They load up 3.
They load up Dorothy 3 and 4 into the truck. So they put 3, they find a tornado, they put 3 in the road, but it's getting blown everywhere by the wind. And it's about to topple over anyway, but a giant tree comes and smashes it and it knocks over.
Yeah. That same tree slides up under their truck, and basically they're stuck.
Right. Like it's up under the axles, like the tires aren't even touching the road.
And then you see, Joe's like, we gotta go. we have to go. And then you see a tanker,
shit's bad when
tanker truck hovering about 5 feet up in the air, just coming towards them. And I was like, first time I watched the movie, I was like, ugh.
You know things are bad when Joe's like, we gotta go.
Yeah.
Because it's the first time she says that. So
this tanker truck flies by and luckily barely nudges them off the tree.
Super nice to just barely
and they can get away.
Right.
Now, but as they're getting away, this thing explodes and Joe and Bill just drive right through.
Yes, they do. The rest of their team calls, was like, are you okay? And they're like, yeah, we're okay. It's like, did you see that explosion? It's like, yeah,
like,
we saw it.
So they're driving down and they're kind of, the storm's a little bit ahead and to the side of them, and Bill's looking at it, he was like, he doesn't know if they can get to it, but he knows Jonas's team is close, and he's like, I think he's last straw, like one of us has to get one of these machines to work. So he's like, he says a few things to Joe, and basically convinces her, like, she gets on the CB, she tries to call Jonas, he's like, not now, now's not the time.
Well, they're telling him it has to be anchored, that it's too light. It has to be anchored somehow. And he's like, oh, you're sharing secrets now, huh? Like, just not listening to him. He
basically tells him to fuck off because he's an asshole. He's not listening to. So Bill's trying to yell at Eddie, the driver. He's like, you need, at one point, he's like, it's shifting, you need to get the fuck out. And he's talking to Eddie, and Jonas reaches down and unplugs the CB.
Yeah. Because Eddie was listening. He was like, we need to listen to him. He would never put us in harm's way.
Yeah. And Eddie ends up taking a steel girder to the chest.
Yes, he does. Straight
which
impaled.
Was probably...
Be more kind
because that truck gets sucked up and then explodes.
Yeah, it sucked up, dropped back to the ground, and then explodes.
Does Joe say we have debris?
Joe says we have debris.
And Bill is like, debris?
Right. Debris consists of, like, tractors and combines.
Like, debris is leaves, tree limbs, a shingle off of a house. Not a whole goddamn house rolls through the road.
Yeah.
Which I might be getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, well, first it's tractors and combines right and stuff, and then the house...
The house rolls across the road. Well, it doesn't actually cross. It gets stuck, and Bill's like, fuck it, floors it through.
We're going in! Which, the Honest Trailer I talked about earlier called it House Hunters, Oklahoma.
Joe's like, maybe we should get off this road. And he's like, yeah. And then you have the Pirates music. It was so close to the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Dun, dun, dun. No, that's Game of Thrones.
No, it wasn't the Game of Thrones. It was
no, what I hummed was Game of Thrones. So they know they have to anchor this thing. So they get off the road. They're going through like a field.
Yeah, they're going through a cornfield.
A field. So much corn. Like, corn should have had a credit in this movie.
So they basically decide they're going to leave the Dorothy unit strapped to the truck, and they are going to drive through, and I think Dustin or Rab or somebody says they're going to punch the cord. Like, they came up with whatever they were to do by themselves.
So, they put it in cruise control, open the doors, and at the last second kind of jump out into this cornfield. And it works. Like, the tornado takes the truck and all, and the little sensors fly out, and it's beautiful.
So, the storm starts to shift, and they're all like, yeah, you guys got to get out of there, but I don't think they realize that they weren't in the truck.
Right.
Or that they used the truck to send the package in.
Right.
So the storm shifts and they start running for cover at a nearby farm.
They run into a murder barn.
It's not necessarily a murder barn, such as every single tool in there was sharp.
Yeah, axe. Well, they have from the ceiling too, so there's just axes and saws and just any sharp instrument you could think of dangling from the ceiling.
You definitely wanted to be in an area before the tornado hits this barn, because after the tornado hits this barn,
it's weaponized.
Yeah, it is now weaponized and ready to murder anything in its path. If it wasn't bad enough.
Joe looks up and she's like, oh, I don't think so. And Bill's like, who are these people?
So the barn, they realize the tornado's getting too close. There's nowhere underneath. The barn's just a barn.
The barn's a barn.
A building on top of some dirt. They run out to a shed nearby. They escape death numerous times because part of one of those combines rolls over them.
Right. I think at one part they dodge part of the barn.
So they get into this little shed, and I think it's part of their irrigation system. Bill's like, this pipe's got to be at least 30 feet deep. Let's just anchor down to it. So he grabs a leather strap, and they both strap into this pipe.
Right. And now, when the tornado comes, they are full on upside down, legs in the air, and Joe's eyes are full open. So she finally got to see inside this tornado that she's been trying to see into since the beginning, since 1969. She's been trying to see this tornado.
So while they were chasing this thing, they were saying, this thing's like, it's possible it's over a mile wide.
Right.
But they are dead center, middle of the funnel, while she's looking up.
But so then, when it's over, a dad carrying a little blonde girl comes up out of their shelter, and then he has a bigger family too, but I'm sure that hit her hard. And they just immediately start
fighting over
to argue.
What they're
she was like, oh my God, there's so much to do. You're going to have to start going through all this data, and I'm going to have to set up and run the lab. And he was like, no, I'm going to run the lab, and you're going to go through the data. And they just start arguing. Like, just, that is their dynamic.
Yeah. The rest of the crew comes. They have their makeout session.
Well, it's the end of the movie. He says, look, it left the house. And it left, like, those people's house. It says at the end of the movie, Bill remarks that the tornado didn't take the house. In fact, it was originally supposed to. The Hardin County, Iowa Historical Society and many citizens objected to the house being blown up, so it was spared. The area is now a tourist attraction, and the rubble from the barn and fences is exactly where it was in the movie. So they were too lazy to clean up, and they were just like, tourist!
We fucked up your whole town, bye, see you later.
So originally, this movie had a tagline, it sucks. But producers changed their mind when they realized that such a tagline could be fodder for critics or moviegoers that didn't like the movie. Also, another fun fact just while we're here, the movie was so loud and the bass was so heavy that the film notoriously destroyed many surround speakers all over theaters in the United States and worldwide.
Man, I bet those people were pissed.
I bet.
You're halfway through a movie and you're like, can't hear anything.
Yeah. So, it was a bit of a dangerous movie to have been on. It said that Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton were briefly blinded. Said that the stars sat in the cab of a truck lit with bright electric lamps all day long to keep the sky behind them looking dark and stormy. But as it got brighter outside of the truck, the lamps had to be made brighter. So bright that they burnt their retinas and temporarily blinded them. The two had to use special eye drops and wear special glasses for a few days afterward. Said they both also needed hepatitis shots after an afternoon laying in that unsanitary-ass ditch. And then the director made a comment that Helen Hunt was a bit clumsy because she hit her head on the car door when she was trying to jump out into the field. And she rightfully got mad and was like, clumsy. This guy almost burnt my retinas out, but I'm clumsy.
Ooh, shots fired.
Right? Said it was a box office hit, sucking up nearly $500 million in worldwide ticket sales, making it the second biggest hit of 1996.
I don't feel like it would do that well.
I think it would do great today. Speaking of, they're going to do a remake.
And I don't know why they're going to do a remake.
I think it's a really good movie.
That's your opinion.
I've read a lot of people online excited that they're going to make a remake because it shows a woman interested in, like, STEM, like science and technology. And apparently we need that today. Now, we've taken the time, I think, have we taken the time to make our version of a recasted movie for today?
Yes.
So, if they were going to just straight out remake this movie, who do you have playing Joe?
I had a few listed down. I think I settled on Emma Watson.
Like Harry Potter, Emma Watson?
I think so.
Just make sure that was who you meant. I have Blake Lively. Who do you have for Bill?
Chris Pratt.
I also have Chris Pratt, or I actually had Joseph Gordon-Levitt first.
Yeah.
But I think Chris Pratt might be better.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt might make a good Jonas.
He would. I have Jesse Eisenberg for Jonas, but I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt would make a good Jonas.
Jesse Eisenberg. Facebook.
The Social Network and Superman.
I have Joel McHale for Jonas.
That would be good too. He would make a good Dick. Who do you have for Melissa? Because she's the one I had the most trouble with.
Anne Hathaway.
I have Zoe Deschanel. Her sister also might be good for that.
Who's your sister?
But she might be a little too old. Emily Deschanel from Bones.
Did you cast Aunt Meg?
Yes.
Kathy Bates?
Yes. Absolutely has to be. You know, Aunt Meg's still alive.
Ooh. So Aunt Meg could play herself.
Aunt Meg could still play Aunt Meg.
But I thought Kathy Bates would make it good.
Right. I agree.
Did you cast Dusty?
I did. Who do you have?
Pat McAfee. I mean, he allegedly already swam in the canal.
So, Indianapolis Colts punter.
Yes.
Pat McAfee. I have Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen would also make a good one.
Alright. So, that's who I would put if we were going to just straight out remake it. But what I think we should do is have Twister 2, where Bill, since Bill Paxton has died in real life, Bill is dead in Twister 2 because you cannot replace him. So what happened is, Joe and Bill got pregnant. So Joe couldn't go out on this tornado chase. She had to stay home. She was like far along, let's say 8 or 9 months. She told Bill not to go without her. She wanted to go. He wouldn't let her. The doctors convinced her she couldn't go, but he went. He dies in this tornado chasing event.
So now, are you saying they CGI?
No, this just
this
can be
scene?
backstory. No, they don't have to have this at all. It's just the backstory of what happened. So Bill's dead. He died in a tornado accident. Joe has a baby. Well, in the movie, it's a grown-ass man. I'm thinking it's their son. It could be their daughter if you're really hung up on that woman thing. But I'm thinking it's their son, and he wants to carry on their work. Now, Joe is dead set against it because tornadoes have now cost her absolutely everything, but he won't listen.
You thought way too much.
And I think that should be Twister 2. I also cast it. Now, their son would be played by Joe Carey, who is Steve from Stranger Things, and then Joe would obviously still be Helen. You don't like my Twister 2 story?
I mean, it's probably what it's going to be.
Well, they said it's going to be a remake, so it should just be this kind of basic story.
I don't like remakes.
Well, I think they said that they were still looking for a writer, and I would be happy to write the remake or Twister 2, my version or yours, whatever you want to do. I'm flexible.
I don't like remakes.
We could knock it out of the park.
That being said, there are probably stuff that was 30s, 40s, 50s that was redone.
A lot of the times I'll say something to my dad, like, hey, did you see this movie? And he was like, the original or not? And I'm like, I guess the original. And he'll watch it and he'll be like, yeah, that's not the original. The original was done in the 50s. Like Westworld, I was like, hey, did you see Westworld? And he was like, which one? And I was like, huh?
Now, that older stuff I can understand doing. But I don't think you make this any better.
Because it's a good movie? What if they made the grittier version that Bill Paxton wanted? What if they see his vision out? Well,
now that movie studios see that they can still make money doing that, maybe
yeah,
they will.
Most everything's are now.
I don't think it matters, like the rating.
So we only have 2 rips from the movie, Bill Paxton and Philip Seymour Hoffman. Did you know that Bill Paxton was in the 3rd highest grossing film of 1994, the 3rd highest grossing film of 1995, the 2nd highest grossing film of 1996, and the highest grossing film of 1997?
Jesus.
Like, Bill Paxton had a fucking run in the 90s.
What were those movies? One of them didn't say.
True Lies, Apollo 13, Twister, and Titanic. So, you want to take a stab at the
Tomatometer? I would say the critics gave it a 60.
57.
Damn. Audience 70?
58. It says, a high-concept blockbuster that emphasizes special effects over 3-dimensional characters. Twister's visceral thrills are often offset by the film's generic plot. Uppity-ass bitches. Do you want to do your review first, or you want to do other people's reviews first?
Others.
I guess that means it's time for
Ratchet Reviews.
Alright, this one's actually 3.5 star, but it's kind of funny and poignant to us right now. I watched the movie in 4D. I turned on the electric fan to the highest setting. It was intense. Now, our air conditioner is currently broken, so we also watched this movie with our box fan on the highest setting.
Yep.
Alright, this one is kind of a weird one. And they're kind of everywhere. 0.5 star. fuck the opening of this shit film. I'm basing the entirety of this film on the opening. It begins in the middle of a storm, like I don't even know if it's a Tuesday or anything. For all I know, it's Christmas. Then the fucking alcoholic-looking ass dad and mom grab their annoying brat child, who won't shut the fuck up, to try and take them to an outdoor cellar. Now, I'm no designer, but should you put a fucking tornado shelter thing in your house? I think there's meant, shouldn't you put it in your house? But that's not what they said. Dig a fucking hole. Also, why are they just now realizing a giant tornado is right by them? You were watching TV. You could have heard that fucking storm was in the area because of a severe weather alert. Then there's the dog. They fucking left the dog. It's a fucking ball of fur and was following you. Pick it up. If it wasn't for that dumb child, I want to throw out the goddamn window. The dog would have died. So then, the alcoholic dad puts everyone in the cellar and has to hold the door closed, but the storm breaks it open. Like, that makes me think all their chickens are dead now. Then the dad flies out, which would have made this film 5 stars, but they didn't even fucking show it. They didn't show if the dog got sucked out either. A full-grown man was grabbed, so the rat-sized dog must have died, right? Listen here, you little fucks. Confirm if the dog dies or not before I tear your eyes out of your fucking sockets.
There's a lot to unpack.
I don't think the dog died because the tornado doesn't, dip itself down into the cellar. They're protected. They're underground. Asshole. Hold on. I'm mad. They didn't know because there's no warning. Present day, there's fucking 3 minutes of warning. Yes, he was watching the news, and I'm sure when it said it was getting close is when he got everybody out there. Go ahead. And she's not annoying. She was yelling for the dog the whole time.
So they're mad that the opening is in the middle of this storm, but it fucking says June 1969.
Yes, it is definitely not Christmas, as tornadoes do not typically happen in December.
Yeah. So they don't have this elaborate emergency broadcast system.
Right. He was watching the weather.
As they do today.
He was watching the weather, and when they said, hey, it's coming, he got his family and went. Also, didn't understand why this person thought he was an alcoholic. He was just dressed like a farmer in that area would be. And then you said he was the dad.
He's Lance's dad on Varsity Blues.
He's Lance's dad on Varsity Blues, who was a bit of an alcoholic in that movie. And I was like, oh, you're just transferring that over to this.
Well, this person is just hating to hate on shit.
Yeah.
They're hating on shit which they didn't pay attention to. You didn't pay attention that it was June 1969. This is
look
fucking
how long this review is for the opening scene.
Yeah, this is 30 years ago. And then they bitch about the dog. And did the dog get sucked up? No, because the dog's probably smart enough to get the furthest away from that door.
Yeah, the dog was fine. It wasn't even going to go get Joe when she started running towards it.
So yeah, they just weren't paying attention, so their review is null and void.
I'm not really sure what this review means. I thought maybe you could help me figure it out. 1.5 stars. The most compelling evidence yet that the U.S. government has weather-controlling technology.
Do they believe they just fucking made these tornadoes? You don't just fucking make tornadoes.
I kind of wondered if they thought, they were like, okay, ready, set, action, and the government just popped up some tornadoes for them. I wish this was a video podcast so bad right now, because your mind is blown.
Hey, can we get the sisters rolling now?
Yeah,
30 seconds in, we're going to need it to split.
Yeah.
No, you don't. This, for the time, in 1996, this scene is the mile-wide tornado come through the field.
Right.
Was legit. This
it looks
the
really
better
good.
of all the CGIs at the time. But come on. You don't just...
I think they thought it was all real.
They got some sunny days. They shot on some cloudy days.
Clearly, they blinded the stars of the movie to...
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright. 1.5 stars. This is another movie that I loved when I was little and did not hold up upon rewatching as an adult. It almost felt like a Disney Channel made-for-TV movie. It amazes me how Bill Paxton can be such an over-actor at times and then incredibly non-expressive at others. Side note, I feel like the Twister ride at Universal Studios Orlando also wouldn't hold up very well if I were to go check it out today.
Why does the ride have to hold up? It just has to be a fucking ride.
Well, yeah, it's not really a ride.
Then what is it?
Okay. Any giant Universal fans, don't come at me. I went on the ride fucking once in the 90s. I've drank a lot since then. I don't remember everything. So what I remember, you walk into the murder barn with all of the stuff hanging around, right? And I remember it being ice fucking cold. I don't know if that was by design or it just happened to be ice fucking cold. But even then, you're looking around and you're like, oh, I don't want to fucking be in here. I fucked up by getting in this line. Like, what the fuck? I got to get the fuck out of here. So then you go through it. I think that's just part of the line, honestly. And you walk through the line, and then I think you're seated in kind of like a theater situation, and you're at the drive-in, and like shit's just sparking and arcing, and they've somehow created lightning. I guess that's the government. And it's kind of like a 4D thing, so like shit's hitting you. There's like rain and stuff splashing you in the face, and you feel the wind, and like the sign falls down, and it's more of an experience than a ride. Like, to my knowledge, from my memory, there was no motion involved. And I doubt that they still have the Twister ride at Universal.
I don't think there's anything to hold up or not on rewatching it years later. Like, it is what it is. Like,
well, I mean, that's the thing, whether it held up or not. And I think it totally does. Like, there's nothing, like, horribly outdated. Like,
I'm surprised you didn't find any, like, ratchet reviews from meteorologists complaining about this is what they did or didn't do.
I did not. I mean, I'm sure if I looked hard enough, but...
Yeah. Armchair experts.
I got a 5-star review. Said Helen Hunt as Jo Harding was one of my first ever girl crushes. Legit just wanted to be her. I first watched this film when I was around 5 and fell in love. Still to this day remains one of my favorite all-time movies. Maybe that's why I like it. Maybe I just wanted to be Jo.
You want to study tornadoes?
No, but she's just kind of badass.
I wouldn't call her badass.
Fuck you! What does she have to do to be more badass than she is?
I mean, maybe punch Melissa in the face, but...
Her and Melissa had more of a quiet hatred. So I have one more review. 1 star. 90s blockbusters honed a very particular brand of terrible. Twister wins the competition for the most terrible 90s blockbuster born from a terrible idea and made terribly. It was a competition, wasn't it? It had to be. A tornado of terrible. Which I clearly dis-fucking-agree with.
Now, I always bag on this movie because you just, for whatever reason, if it was on...
I know.
You stopped. It didn't matter what was on.
Right.
You stopped. But it's not that bad of a movie.
No. I really thought you were going to come in here and shit on it as much as you shit on it to my face.
I give it a 3.
Give it a 5.
5. Strong. Strong.
Well, if it's one of my favorite movies, it has to be a 5, right?
No, you can...
No, it's a full movie. It has emotional range, it has action, it has drama, it has a love story, it has heartbreak, it has loss, it has tragedy, it has people overcoming stuff. It's a fucking 5-star movie.
F5?
It's an F5-star movie. Oh. So I have 2 more fun facts that I want to read real fast. 1, it says that the tornado sounds are made up of various animal noises. But it says that they altered a camel's moan and slowed it down to create the sounds of the storms. And that there's also a lion's growl and a tiger snarl remixed into tornado audio. But there has to just be somebody out there that has audio of a tornado that they didn't have to do all that shit, right? Like, I know growing up they tell you it sounds like a train, but it's weird that they used a camel moan to make tornado noise, right?
Yep.
So it said that they tried to cast Garth Brooks to be the lead of this movie.
Oh god, that would have been terrible.
And he turned it down, I agree.
Oh my gosh, that would have been terrible.
And then it said they chose Tom Hanks. Said Hanks read lines with the cast and even chose the character's wardrobe, which ended up staying in the final film before dropping out. Kurt Russell and Michael Keaton were other possible considerations. They landed on Bill Paxton due to his Southern everyman charm and recommendation by James Cameron. But I think he was definitely the best for it. Like, I can't see any of those other people doing it.
Especially Garth Brooks. That would have been
Yeah, that seems like an awful choice. I'm not a big Garth Brooks aficionado. Did he do other movies? Is he an actor?
I don't think so.
I don't recall. Alright, so you gave it a what?
I would say 3.
A 3. I gave it a 5, an F5.
Mm-hmm.
They said that the entire cast was on Oprah, and she was talking about, like, you know, what did you go through filming it, and they were talking about how the wind was so awful and all the debris, and as soon as they yelled cut, somebody would come in with eye drops and try to fix their eyes, and they were almost blinded, and the hepatitis shots, and on about how awful it was to film this movie. And then they went to break, and unknowingly to them, Oprah then brought out real tornado survivors, and they had to sit on stage with them seconds after they bitched about filming this movie. And they're like, yeah, I lost my house, and my dog was sucked up, and they said it was the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to them.
That's
I don't know why Oprah wouldn't tell them. Like, she's not like a gotcha media kind of thing. Like, why in the hell? Like, I guarantee everybody fired their fucking press secretary, PR person after that.
Yeah, we had a rough time playing pretend, and it really sucked.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I lost my whole thing.
Yeah.
Homeless for a while. And everybody else is just like, fuck me.
Yeah, exactly. It's awful. Oh. Alright, you got anything else?
I'm done. Alright, that's been Running Back for Twister. I'm Jason.
I'm Sarah. You can follow us on our website. It is runitbackpodcast.com. It has all of our social media accounts linked to it. It has all of our episodes up, and under subscribe, it has different podcast apps that you can subscribe to.